Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton and Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network and the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa and China, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful October the 17th, 2019. Grondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, I'm going through weather shock down here in the south. Just a week and a half ago, I was outside getting a tan. This morning, I had to wrap up like I was an Eskimo.
Sometimes Eskimos wrap up too, but they like ice because the rain doesn't bother them as much. I want to say it's all fair in the sports universe, and so much happening on the East Coast, up in Boston, Massachusetts area, lots of places in the Northeast. Even in New York, they had to delay the game last night. A lot of wind problems in the Northeast, so we hope people are being safe up there. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. You know, we do things, and I don't know if it's I don't know. Sometimes you do things and you start to see it a lot. It's called the reticular activating system. You buy a car, whether it's Porsche, BMW, Mercedes, Cadillac, you'll start seeing those cars around you because you just do. Well, I just want to pay homage to one of my TV brethren that I like, Jimmy Kimmel, last night. He did a segment, Big C, called On This Date, October 16, 1962, and he referenced a letter by John F. Kennedy, and I know Big C Sports was in doing that. I'm not saying we invented it, but isn't it nice when you buy a car, you start seeing more cars like yours, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the only thing I worry about buying a car and seeing one that looks like mine is somebody going out trying to get in it while I'm sitting there.
Yeah, well, Jimmy Kimmel's a cool guy. I like him a lot, but it just sometimes you do things and people say, well, what are you doing that for? Just tell me who won the game. And then you're seeing some of the top entertainers in the world doing the same thing. It's all fair in love and war. I know we talk about sports. I know people want to know who won a game. But freedom of speech, as we're seeing what's going on in other countries, it's not always free, Big C. People got to go through things to get there. I want to say, we talked about Jesse Jackson yesterday, and Rainbow Push Coalition, civil rights marches, helping Dr. King, so many things that he went through. We benefit from it. We're the beneficiaries of his hard work, Big C. The world has lost one of the greatest civil rights leaders of our time in Elijah Cummings, Congress Representative Elijah Cummings, and I believe he was only 68 years old, and it's a shame. I mean, God calls us all when God's ready to call us. We all come in on this world on our own. We're all going to leave on our own, no matter who you know in between. Just give me your thought for the powerful black men that have done so much in this country, and sometimes they don't get acknowledged for it until they're gone. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the late Elijah Cummings, Charlton, he's been a 23-year civil servant out of the District of Baltimore in Congress. He was born there, and he passed away there also, Charlton, but he took care of the people of his district.
Yeah.
He's been the leader of the House Oversight Committee. The House Oversight Committee in Congress is that committee that overlooks the money that's spent by the government.
That's right.
Whether it's wrongdoings or right doings.
Yeah.
They have to be the watchdog for it. And you think about an African-American male in American society rising to that height, Charlton, to overlook the most powerful seat in Congress, and that's the money that the government is spending.
Yeah.
Elijah Cummings, worked at a very tough district in Baltimore, spent many visits in that city, Charlton, for sporting events and stuff. But when I think about the heart of Elijah Cummings and what he went through, he was in failing health over the past couple of years, but he never let that stop him from his journey of representing and protecting the people that had elected him, Charlton. And this is what we don't get from all politicians. People who are not self-serving. Elijah Cummings was a man of the people, not a man of self-serving.
Yeah, and You know, 68 is not, it's not that old, especially in today's world of medicine and science. But it's not how long you live, it's how you live. And he left a legacy, whether he, I don't think he did it to leave a legacy. I just think there's some people in this world, they do the right things. And I was talking to many friends that I know today, and it's just amazing how the universe does things. We have people in the White House that are, you know, all kind of shenanigans going on, and people running for president of the United States that are in their 70s, and they're still going strong. And, you know, God calls us all when he wants to. Just want to say thoughts and prayers are truly with his family. But I want to also just say, for people who are out there fighting for causes, making sure that their kids have a place to stay, food in the belly, the chance to go vote. I mean, if people don't vote for this election, then just, I mean, I don't even know what to say. Don't say my vote doesn't count. No, you don't count if you don't vote. I just don't want that apathy to set up, not when this man gave his life for so much. And Big C, I know that's important to you as well. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, this is the job of civil service, Charlton, to represent the people. And Elijah Cummings did that with dignity and honor up until the day that he passed, Charlton. And when you think of a legacy that a man gives, you have to sit back and look. What did you do that were accountable to other people?
Yeah.
That's the legacy that we all want to have.
Yeah, I just really appreciate it. So I wanted to just start off with that today. I want to say you can follow Big C Sports, brought to you by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the opportunity that what sponsorship brings Big C. And also, Big C Sports, you can follow us on Xfinity Comcast Television. Also launching on Roku TV, Fire TV, Android TV, and smart TVs all over the universe. The only thing that makes that happen, you know, shows look for content. And everywhere you go, whether it's TV or radio, without content, you would have that quiet noise. When I was a young boy growing up on TV, they would have those color bars that would just run across the TV in silence. Well, now oftentimes they'll just have replayed shows throughout that day. It's called looping. And so with the content, when you have a good content and people want to get behind your work, they don't have to tell you. Just listen to their sponsors, because that means you're growing. And when you're growing enough for corporate America to invest in you, Big C, that's validation, especially with so many good old boys said. Why don't you guys just read the score, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, I enjoy the content that we put in, you know, about having the freedom to speak openly, whether you agree or object to things that are going on in the world of sports, society, and even politics.
Yeah.
And that's what makes everybody unique. Not try to copycat what other people are doing, not worry about what other broadcasters are doing, but just concentrate on yourself. Make yourself better. Make people believe in what you're doing to show your uniqueness and your originality.
Yeah.
And that's what draws everybody to you.
Yep.
Because everybody out there is trying to be somebody else,
yeah,
other than being themselves.
Well, it's like an old lady told me when I was a young boy growing up. I used to listen to a lot of Dr. Ruth, and she always talked about the fact of life. And, you know, Teddy Pendergrass heard maybe way too much Teddy Pendergrass growing up. It was always about love, and making love is more to love than making love, and make love, not war. You know, coming up through that Vietnam era, people don't want to talk about love, but they want to talk about war. It's amazing how people are pro-life, but they're also pro-death penalty. Doesn't make any sense. So everything that we talk about is just from the heart, and I really appreciate when we're getting the opportunity to get validation from other people, Big C. If the National Suicide Hotline can help people, I'm proud that you brought it to my attention. Jesus said, if you love me, feed my sheep. Don't tell me how much money you have. Don't tell me what your political affiliation is. If you love me, feed my sheep. It wasn't even about the tithe. If you love me, feed my sheep. Giving out this National Suicide Hotline, I think it's feeding sheep, Big C. I really do think it's like the fish, the loaf of bread, the fishes, and you feed the village. If you have any type of issues, whether you're a military veteran or civilian, sometimes people just need somebody to hold their hand and help them. If we can save one person a day, and I know you gave a horrific stat about how many military veterans end their lives, if we can save just one person a day, that's over 300 people a year that Big C Sports can help, because we lead them down the right path. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is there, Charlton, for all Americans. It was started for our military veterans, but it's there to lend a hand to anybody in need. People who need counseling, someone to talk to who is not judgmental, that won't deal with them saying, well, you should be stronger and things like that. Get over it.
Right.
There's so much of that in American society. You got to stand on your own 2 feet. No one stood on their own 2 feet in a life in America, Charlton, without somebody helping them.
That's right.
And that's what the new National Suicide Hotline Prevention number is there for, to help. To talk to people, Charlton, to talk them off of that cliff that they may be teetering on.
Yeah.
Anybody needs an ear in life at any time. The strongest person that we can ever think of always needs somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
And the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number provides that segue, Charlton, for people to have someone to talk to that are non-judgmental, that can show that they care and exemplify it.
800-273-8255. 800-273-8255 or text 838-255. That's 838-255. And I just want to say that means a lot to me, because I know people that I know personally. I'm not giving out any names, of course. I would never do that. But I've had some friends over the years that they have to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. They have to go get their treatment. They were still working, though, but they took the time to go get that help. That's also a form of help. They were functional, but they still needed help. And many people who are dealing with, issues of alcoholism, they're getting help because it's out there. And I want people to know that hotline's there to help them too. I want to get into a few things that happen in the world of sports, Big C. Among the big surprises this year in college football, and I love college football. It makes me feel like that young man again that they had you doing double days. Remember double days back in the day? You got to practice twice, even if it was 100 degrees, but it felt good. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when I was growing up, Charlton, we had 3-a-days, so we went out there 3-a-days, and it was horrific in the heat.
Yep.
And the mosquitoes and all the stuff. We didn't have the training apparatuses that they have today. We didn't have the medical technology that they have today. It was about toughening up.
Yeah, toughening up and getting ready for battle. And so when you think about that, some of these programs we look at, the same 6 teams occupied the first 6 spots in the top 25 poll, all the way up until Georgia lost 22-17, and they lost in overtime to South Carolina last week. And Big C gave you his thoughts on that. Big C, 6 teams occupied the top spot till last weekend. Your thoughts?
Well, the pollsters only considered those teams as far as the playoff run. Those were the lock-ins, because those teams also would eventually, half of them would meet each other, Charlton, and decide who would make it to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's always decided on the field, and that's when double days really kicks in, when your stamina kicks in. Big C, the number 6 Wisconsin Badgers, and I know a lot of people in Milwaukee and that area, that metropolitan area, Madison area, they think number 6 is too low, but we'll find out soon enough. After posting a disappointing 8-5 record last season, Wisconsin has beaten its first 6 opponents by, get this, an average of 37.7 points a game. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you talk about a team that's dominant defensively, and that's what the Badgers have been this year. They have run through all their opponents, Charlton. Everybody talks about offense and what an offense will do, but when your opponents are not scoring any touchdowns, Charlton, it makes it quite easy for your offense when you have the nation's top running back.
Yeah, it's a lot easier when they're not scoring. Big C, goose eggs, I understand. I think Badgers eat goose eggs. Them good old boys are laying them, Big C. I think about number 18, Baylor. Everything's big in Texas. Who would have ever thought that the undefeated team out of Texas would not be Texas or Texas A&M, but Baylor? The Bears were picked to finish 6th in the Big 12 this year after going 7-6 last season, Big C. Baylor's undefeated, and it shows the ability to win a close game, and they do have a pretty nice facility, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Al Grover's done a miraculous job since coming over from Temple, taking over that program that was really on the scrap heap as far as the NCAA goes. And no one looked at them in the Big 12 media days as being a viable entity to challenge for the conference title. But they are one of only 2 teams in the Big 12 that are undefeated. The other is top flight Oklahoma.
Yep, that's amazing. Now, think about this. Number 19, SMU. They're undefeated, Big C, the Mustangs. I was wondering, did Eric Dickerson and Craig James go back to college and play football? I think they're too old to run fast now. But they're in the top 25. For the first time since 1996, actually 1986, Big C. That's going back 33 years, and they haven't been held to less than 37 points all season, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the Pony Express, you can actually call it the Electric Express right now, Charlton. This is a team that's become an explosive offensive team. They have Shane Buechele at quarterback, who transferred from the University of Texas, and who would have thought the best quarterback in Texas would be at SMU right now?
Isn't that amazing? And I know they used to play, if my memory is right, they used to play their games at the Cotton Bowl. No, they used to play at Dallas Stadium, the old Texas Stadium. Now, I guess about 2 decades ago, they revamped their stadium. They only hold about 35,000, but they're starting to win now, but they're in a smaller facility, but they're still a very good team. A team that no one really thought about. I saw them earlier when they came out to the West Coast, University of Minnesota, ranked number 20 in the country. The Gophers are 6-0, and when you think about them being 6-0, they're still a young team. They're 6-0 for the first time, Big C, since the 2003 season, and nearly have matched their win total from a 7-6 campaign last year. Them good old boys are looking strong, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you talk about another second-year coach in college football that's hot, and that's P.J. Flick at Minnesota. He has the Golden Gophers off and running, Charlton. They have a dominant running game, and that's what you need in Big Ten football. But getting off to a 6-0 start, it really favors the Gophers because they play their games outdoors at home in the latter part of the year. It makes it tough on opponents.
Yeah, it really does. I'm sure they wouldn't mind asking the Vikings, could they go into that stadium with the dome on it, Big Z? Maybe the Vikings will open up the doors. You never know unless you ask. Think about this program. Number 2, LSU, quarterback Joe Burrow. His emergence has really helped LSU become, I think, the top team, at least the highest scoring team in the nation. I still like Ohio State. This year, them good old boys, they're averaging 52.5 points a game. Burrow has improved his completion percentage from 57.8% the last two to the FBS leading 79.6% completion. That means they're catching almost everything you throw up, Big C. And he's already thrown 25 touchdowns in just having 16 of all last season, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, people have always known LSU as being a great defensive university, Charlton.
Yeah.
They've always been in the games defensively. They just never had a quarterback to consistently get them over the hump.
That's right.
Joe Burrow has turned those things around. The Ohio State transfer, along with head coach Ed Orgeron, has the Tigers thinking about the potential of a national championship.
Yeah, and, I want to ask you this question. What team, in your opinion, has the better chance of running the table, because you got to win your division and then your conference championship game? And this is about who's number one. A lot of people think these are the top 2 teams. Who do you think has an easier path? Would it be LSU or would it be Ohio State? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, right now the easier path to the national championship run, Charlton, would be Oklahoma and Clemson. When you think about the opponents that are left on those schedules, Clemson has a weak ACC schedule.
Yep.
When you think about Oklahoma, their next biggest game is probably this week against West Virginia.
Yeah, well, that's true, Big C. So we'll see what happens. It's all like the dice. You got to shake it up, and we'll see what happens by the time we get to bowl selection. Think about number 8, Memphis, running back. You have Keith Granwell, the team's main running back this season. He was supposed to be the Patrick Taylor who rushed for 1,100 yards last season, Big C, and Taylor hurt his lower leg this season in the opener, and Gainwell took over and has responded well. He's rushed for 726 yards and 7 touchdowns, and he ranks 5th among all FBS players in yards rushing per game, but Memphis still kind of flies under the radar, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, that's the beauty of college football, Charlton, is that teams are flying under the radar, but you have superstar potential athletes.
Yeah.
And you think about the running backs that have come out of the University of Memphis over the past several years. They've had some of the leading rushers in the nation. And so this is no surprise about that conference, the Mid-American Conference, Charlton, having great athletes.
Yeah, another player that you think about. I know Lawrence Taylor left a lot of footsteps there in North Carolina, but North Carolina linebacker Chase Stewart and Wake Forest wide receiver Sage Stewart, each of the Stewart brothers are delivering remarkable results. You have Chad Stewart, a former North Carolina quarterback, who switched positions and is now the Tar Heels' leading tackler. Sage Stewart led the ACC in receiving with 46 catches, 711 yards, and 9 touchdowns, already improving upon his 2018 total. It had 3 categories, Big C. That's amazing, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about brotherly loves and brothers competing against each other, even though they're not on the same team, the greatest thing about after a competition on Saturday is be able to call each other and talk about how you did, to make your parents proud and your family proud, Charlton. These two outstanding young men did not walk in and say, hey, okay, if I can't play what I wanted to play,
That's
I'm
right.
out of here.
Yeah.
They switched positions to help their team and also to help themselves in a potential career.
That's amazing when people can grow up and they have those dreams of sometimes playing together, and you actually have guys that are doing it, always wishing them nothing but the best. You think about the Florida Gators, the quarterback Kyle Trask, his career backup has stepped in for injured Flippy Franks and made sure the Gators haven't really missed a beat, especially defensively. I think that loss at LSU was an anomaly, given up so many points coming off of that big game they had over Auburn. But Trask helped Florida come from behind to win at Kentucky. And the night that Frank got hurt, he thrown for 10 touchdowns while completing 68% of his passes in that game. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the competition that Trask has had to face this year, he's had to face 3 top 25 teams, Charlton, and he's only suffered the 1 loss. And you think about it. The first time he started a college football game after the Kentucky win since he was a freshman in high school. So this is a guy who has sit back, bought his time, been patient, learned the system. Dan Mullen felt confident in him, Charlton, and he's delivered the goods for the University of Florida.
Yeah, it's all about getting opportunities, and we've seen it in college. We've seen it, of course, in pro football. And guys, we talk about the recruiting tactics that schools will use. They make every player feel they're going to go pro. Not that they're all going to graduate and get a degree, but just be honest. If you can go pro, you'll make a lot more money than if you graduate and work middle of the road jobs, because a lot of guys are making millions of dollars. So that's always an enticement. But like you said many, many times, you could be the best high school player on your team. You might be the best high school player in your league. You might even be one of the best in your county or state. By the time you go to college programs, like the big programs at Florida, there are 5 guys you got to beat out that are just like you, and they may only have an opening for 3 positions. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, so many people get swayed thinking that they're going to be the next thing, and kids being told today that your future is in professional sports is very wrong delivery, whether it's from family, whether it's from coaches, whether it's from friends.
Yep.
Everybody's future is in education.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, the ideal dream of any collegiate or high school athlete is to become a professional athlete. But as I walked through that tier of challenges over the years, when I got to high school, it was always told, this guy is better than you. You had to work harder than him to become a starter. When you got to college, everybody in college was better than you. You had to work harder than them to become a starter. Then when you get to the pro ranks, you get there and this guy's already making money.
Yeah.
And not willingly want to give up that money because you want a job.
Yeah.
So you even have to work harder than them to get a job. So,
Yeah.
But the opportunities are very minimal compared to the opportunities that you can have in any other profession that can last 40 years in mainstream.
Yeah, that's very true. And that's why I just love when people understand it's about the competition. But no matter what it is, whether it's in media, whether it's in working in 9 to 5, whether it's any sports team, you got to be ready. You got to open the door, and when that door is open, you got to run through it. You can't walk through it. You got to run through it. Big C, Syracuse, over in the great Northeast, and I hope people are okay with the weather that they've been having over the last couple of days on the East Coast. But Syracuse, the Orange, they opened the season ranked 22nd after going 10-3 last season. Finished ranked 15th last year in the country. Syracuse is now 3-3. Lost its last 2 ACC conference games by a combined score of 57-16. This team almost knocked off Clemson last year. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you talk about a program that's been very disappointing at the start of the season, Charlton. They started out that way. They were slaughtered by Maryland early in the year, and as you spoke about it, they've lost their last 2 ACC games, Charlton. This team is really struggling after the outstanding 10-win season they had last year.
Yeah, and it's all in how you respond. Everybody has their own reason for responding. And I remember, if I think about Syracuse, they've had such great players over the years. You think about this, they had a quarterback named McPherson that was a great passer. I think the great Donovan McNabb might be someone that they could put him in the record books as far as maybe their most prominent player that's come out of Syracuse outside of Jim Brown, Big C, but that's way back in the day. Just give me your feeling on, Syracuse is mostly known as a basketball power. There were times, of course, when the great Jim Brown played there, Donovan McNabb, Yeah, McPherson played their quarterback. They were also competing for championships. What's fallen off in a great state like New York? How come they can't be like the Alabama of the Northeast, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about Syracuse, Charleston, Syracuse was one of the major universities that allowed African-American athletes to play at it back in the 50s and 60s on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Jim Brown should have won the Heisman Trophy when he was at Syracuse. His team was competing for the national championship. They gave it to Paul Hornung at Notre Dame, who played on a team that only had 2 wins because America wasn't ready to give an African-American Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah.
Although Syracuse ended up with the first African-American player to win the Heisman Trophy, the late Ernie Davis, who never got a chance to play in the NFL, but he would have been teamed in the backfield with Jim Brown, but he died of leukemia, Charlton, before he ever got an opportunity to take a snap in the NFL. They also had another great running back, Floyd Little, who played with the Denver Broncos. And when you think about these 3 great running backs that played at that university, in the Syracuse Hall of Fame, Jim Brown's in the NFL Hall of Fame, all 3 are in the College Football Hall of Fame. They had quarterbacks later on in their run at Syracuse, but when you think about where this university is located up in the Northeast, you would think that they would be able to get a lot more of that Northeastern talent, and they play in a dome stadium, so they always got ideal playing conditions.
Yeah, they don't have to worry about going outside and playing in the cold like a lot of other teams do. Like, you know, Penn State, they're going to be out in the cold. They're in the great Northeast. Pittsburgh, same thing. If you look at Buffalo, you know, they're up there playing out in the outdoors. Even Boston College plays outdoors, so they have the same type of weather, but the good old boys are lucky. Maybe they're not as tough as the good old boys used to be back in the day, Big C. I want to ask you one more thought before we come up on the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. I know when we think about programs, and you brought up something that it's a shame. I mean, again, thoughts and prayers with the late Congressman Elijah Cummings. But he lived a good life. But when you brought up this fact that Jim Brown played at Syracuse, and I believe when they had the HBC schools coming up that played a game in Yankee Stadium, I believe, and there were over 60,000 people in it, and that's when most of the white universities started recruiting black players because they said, my God, these guys are amazing. And now we're still fighting for equality, but we do it through the courts now. We've always done it through the courts, but oftentimes athletes were the vanguards for that, whether it's Ali saying, I'm the greatest, and refusing to go to Vietnam, and they put him in jail because he didn't want to kill innocent people that had never heard him. But this thing that Elijah Cummings fought for, it just triggered in my mind when you said that Jim Brown in Syracuse was one of the first schools to invite people of color to help them get an education and play sports. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they were in the forefront, Charlton, in the Northeast as far as bringing in African-American athletes. And they took a lot of heat for that, Charlton, but they also knew that these young men needed an opportunity not just to get an education, but to compete on the top level of college football.
Yeah.
And Syracuse back then played nationally ranked teams all over the country.
Yeah.
And they competed for national titles, Charlton, with Jim Brown and Ernie Davis in the backfield.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love the knowledge. That's why I call you the mystic. People just need to know that. It's not something that you're pulling up out of a dictionary, Big C. A lot of things are just memory, and having that knowledge, that universal knowledge that people can always Google and tap into. We're going to come up what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. As we take the Big C pause and timeout, we're going to come back and talk more about, social justice, also sports. There's a lot of good things we're looking forward to. We hope you take the pause and come right back with us. All right, we are back from what's called the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. And you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, worldwide on the #1 podcast network in the universe, an iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on television with Xfinity Comcast Television. And you can also follow Big C Sports launching on Apple TV, Roku TV, Fire TV, Android TV, and smart TVs all over the universe. I really appreciate the growth of Big C Sports. And doing this show every day, Monday through Friday, I realize how important it is to have freedom of speech. Because and again, I got to say this because it's personal to me, you have your own story. Whenever you see any program anywhere or when you hear it. I still remember those times growing up, and I grew up in California where oftentimes you're told, well, they don't have an opportunity for you, or, they don't really want to open doors for anybody who's not Caucasian. I know Jim Crow existed. I'm fully aware of the Kerner Commission because I read it many times growing up. But it's just amazing how you can swim against the current and do something and compete with people that would not give you an opportunity and have more national sponsors than the good old boys that said, well, we don't know if you have the right kind of voice. Oh, we don't know if you are, you might be a little bit too, too edgy. You sound like you might be a little bit angry. We don't. And then you have sponsors they can't get. See, that's justification from the universe. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, everybody has their own line to toe when you look at broadcasting. I think about the great Howard Stern. How many people said, he would never make it. People didn't want to touch him.
Yeah.
But he's been one of the greatest voices in radio over the past several decades, Charlton.
Yeah.
And he has a tremendous following. Matter of fact, his voice moves the needle, whether it's in mainstream, politics, or just broadcasting.
Yeah, it does. So for a lot of young people, I think about Elijah Cummings and how things that we do today, we think, hey, I'm doing it because I'm talented. I'm doing it because I worked hard, or I'm doing it because I put in the extra time and the extra hours. I was talking to a mainstream friend in broadcast, works for a major network, and I was asking him just things in question. So he said, so how'd you guys get a show? He's Caucasian, like he was dismayed or surprised. And I asked him, how did he get in the media? He said, oh man, I worked my butt off. I got in there and I just put in my time, and opportunity came up, and a friend called me and said, hey, would you like this opportunity? That's how he got in. He didn't work hard. And I asked him this question because he said, well, how'd you guys get a show? And I said, well, what do the people who look like around you? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, what's the diversity of your company that you work for? And he says, everybody's, pretty cool. I said, no, what's the color of the people that work around you that gave you the opportunity? I mean, honesty. And he said, it's white. It's all white, Big C. And I'm saying this because a lot of black men don't have the guts to say what I'm going to say. It don't matter what color you are to me. But he passed the paperback test, Big C. He passed the paperback test. I'm not knocking him, but it's true, and I told him. Because a lot of companies, your skin color will get you in. You can see it all over TV, and you can hear it all over radio. People don't know what they're talking about unless they have a teleprompter for the most part, or they'll sit on a show with 5 people around them to help them fill in time. We're not doing that. I'm not saying we're any better than anybody else, but I challenge them to do what we do without a script, without a producer, with no teleprompter. And he finally lamented and said, you know what? I understand racism still happens, but I still work my butt off. And I said, everybody does, but you got the opportunity to do it from the inside, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, whenever nepotism rears its head, it's always an opportunity. And he admitted that he got the job through nepotism. We always have to work harder than everybody else in society. As people want to say there's equality in America and people shouldn't think about things that happened in the past. I don't really spend much time thinking about what happens in the past. I look at what goes on right now in the present.
Yep.
And the present is very negative, just like the past was. You don't have to go back 100 years. All you have to do is look back what happened to you last week.
Yep. And be conscious and speak your mind like Elijah Cummings. And speak your mind. That's why God gave you a voice. You don't need someone's permission to breathe. I want to look at some of the disappointments in college football, because in order to fix something, like you go to the doctor, they give you a checkup. They got to tell you what's wrong so they can fix it. They don't want to ignore it. They can't ignore it and fix it at the same time, Big C. I want to look at the Washington State Cougars. This team went 11-2 last season. They had a number 10 ranking, but now they're a 500 team at the midway point, despite opening the year ranked number 23 in the country. I know they have a great coach who's kind of erudite as also, Big C. He's a well-read person. But Washington State, they continue to lead the nation in passing, even because Leach likes to throw the ball, Big C, like the Air Coryell back in the day, even after losing, Gardner Minshew to the NFL. But they're 0-12 in Pac-12 play. They need to learn to run the ball, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, as you look at Washington State, Charlton, this is a team that was competing for a Pac-12 title last year, and all of a sudden things have turned around. They don't have the defense. Aaron Gordon is leading the nation in passing, but this defense is right there They gave up 50 points against a lackluster UCLA team in the second half, not over the game, in the second half. And that's been the abysmal part of their season, and they haven't won a game since they gave up all those points to UCLA.
Let me get your thoughts, and I know that Leach has bought himself some time, has not let Kelly down at UCLA. He's bought himself some time, but at the same time, I still hear rumblings, and it's stupid to say this, but I hear them. You know, Stafford's not doing that great. Maybe Coach Shaw has outlived his welcome. Like, Coach Shaw has helped as many players go on to pro football as anyone else in the Pac-12, and he's won more games than Leach over his tenure, Big C. But he's the one that I'm hearing about. Maybe he's had his stay too long at Stafford, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, when people come disgruntled and they want to say, well, you know, he's not doing the job as a coach, you have to look at the extreme academic standards at the University of Stanford.
Yeah.
And the athletes that he's still able to attract to that university. He's just like Northwestern, a high academic standard for athletes to be accepted at the university. Injuries have fallen Stanford this year and even last year. When you lose your quarterback and your top running back, Charlton, it really hinders your offense.
Yeah, but, you know, it's all fair and level where you just got to keep fighting. Tennessee quarterback Jarrett Bertano, he's a Tennessee starter for the second half of the 2017 and all through the 2018 season. Now, he was considered one of the Volunteers' top players going into the year, but he's also struggled with turnovers, lost his starting spot after Tennessee lost 3 of his first 4 games. And this is the team that, even though they haven't competed really in the SEC, they're still attracting over 100,000 people per game. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is a team right now devoid of talent. A lot of people want to go back and think about Tennessee in the 90s and early 2000s, how dominant that program was, Celtic. But the tide has changed in the SEC and not just Alabama tide. Yeah. But, you know, the players across the board, they don't have the coaching that they once had. They've gone through 4-5 coaches really in the past 8 years at that university. So they just lack stability and great athletes now.
Yeah, but that crowd keeps people off your back a little bit longer than stadiums that have 40,000 people in a 50,000 seat stadium. Vanderbilt, another school where academics count, Big C. Tight end Jared Pinkney. He was a second-team selection on the Associated Press All-American team, but he's caught just 13 passes for 143 yards. And you think about it, the lack of production reflects on how much the entire Vanderbilt offense has fizzled during his 1-5 start. This is a team that was knocking people off last year, Big C. Your thoughts?
This is a team that struggled offensively. They've had a new quarterback this year, and he just hasn't been able to get a grasp of the offense. The defense hasn't been as strong as they were, and as you said, the team is 1-5, a big disappointment from last year, making a bowl game under Coach Derek Mason.
Yep, so it's hard to oftentimes recruit with the other big powerhouses that don't have the same academic standards. You know, I'm pretty partial to Pac-12. I'm not saying that the other conferences don't match, but they are the conference of champion overall. They tend to win awards for overall conference champions, so I really, toot the horn for the Pac-12. But Pac-12 football tonight, BC, did I sleep? I mean, my sleep has been off a little bit lately. I woke up and said, Wednesday? We have college football on Wednesday. A lot of kids have to study and take their exams on Thursday. How are you going to play football on Wednesday and have exams on Thursday, especially when you got to get on a plane? Pac-12 football tonight. Showcase UCLA 1-5 at Stanford 1-3. And for some reason, I understand Kelly being on the hot seat, but not Shaw on the hot seat. But give me your thoughts on those two teams. Your thoughts.
Well, as you look at it and you talk about the Pac-12 getting national recognition, this is what the Pac-12 was putting out as a showcase, and you wonder why they don't get the acclaim nationally. They're not the top 2 teams in the Pac-12. This is one of those things where you wish that you could switch the teams that you put on television. But when you're putting out a team that's 1-5 versus the team that's 2-3 on the season, Charlton, how much national attention and interest will you have in that game?
And now they don't have maybe they weren't prescient enough to see this, but you're playing a game and you're competing against World Series. Now they have to know that World Series happens in October. And if you're going to play a game, at least play it on a weekend where it's not just you going up against the World Series. The World Series, more people are going to draw the eyes, are going to draw on baseball other than football. But I think that's a bad look for the Pac-12.
Well, you're competing against the World Series tonight. The Yankees and the Astros playing, Charlton.
Yep.
You're competing against Thursday night football. with the Chiefs and the Broncos playing.
Yeah.
You also got NHL hockey in full swing tonight on ice, Charlton. So as the Pac-12 is wondering why they don't get the attention and they don't get the attendance in the crowd, who's booking their schedules?
Yeah, it's amazing, Scott. Look it over. Pay attention to the calendar. Big C, as you just mentioned. And my compass is a little bit off today because I said football on Wednesday. I thought maybe I was missing something. But NFL tonight, the Kansas City Chiefs, they're 4-2 at the Denver Broncos. They're 2-4. Now, both teams are on a 2-game losing streak. But in fairness to the Broncos, it's all fair in love and war. They have lost 2 games by last-second field goals because of poor officiating, some people say. Either way, it's just a bad end of the stick, Big C. But this is important for Kansas City much more than Denver, in my opinion, because Denver has a defense that can help them win some games later. Kansas City's defense is so porous lately, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, these teams are actually on 2-game opposite streaks, Charlton. If you think about Denver, they've won their last 2 games.
Yeah,
the Kansas City Chiefs have lost their last 2 games.
That's right.
And when you look at what the Kansas City Chiefs have not been able to do, Charlton, is to keep opposing teams off the field. They're the 30th ranked team in the NFL defensively right now.
Yeah.
That means that Patrick Mahomes is not getting many opportunities to throw the football down the field. The Chiefs' offense is only averaging 22 minutes a game with the football.
Yeah.
22 minutes. That means the teams are running the football. They're averaging just under 200 yards in the last 3 games against the Kansas City Chiefs defense.
Yeah.
So the offense is sitting on the sideline getting cold, and the defense is getting wore out and giving Patrick Mahomes very minimal time to have the football and move it up and down the field.
Yep.
When you look at the Denver Broncos, they have 2 running backs starting with over 400 yards rushing. And so they're going to really have a workload tonight against the Kansas City Chiefs, whose defense is banged up there without their best defensive lineman, Charlton, a cornerback. So it's going to be a long night for Kansas City up in Denver.
Yeah, the mile high might really set in tonight, Big C. So it doesn't matter to me. I mean, football played all over the country, of course, but I don't like these Wednesday night games. It just doesn't make sense for football. It's not fair for fans having to travel. At least on the weekend, people can get off work early on a Friday and drive or sometimes even fly to get to a destination and then know that they got a day to get ready to get back to work again. You got Wednesday night games. How are your people going to travel to that game? Well, Thursday night, it's going to be hard for people to do that. Thursday night. So maybe it is Thursday night. Maybe I do got to reset my calendar, Big C. I was thinking it was still hump day, Big C. Maybe I've eaten too many collard greens. And speaking of collard greens, Big C, them good old boys, they want the green light in New York City. I know they've had some weather issues going on the East Coast. I don't know if that's going to affect them tonight the way it did yesterday, having to postpone that game. But the New York Yankees, they trailed this series 2-1. And they're going with Michiharu Tanaka, who went 11-9 on the season. His ERA is 4.45 on the mound. And then you think about it tonight, facing the Houston Astros starter, Zach Greinke, who's posted a 1.32 ERA in the postseason. But there's something about the old... That old folklore about the old Yankee Stadium where the wind would blow at a certain direction and it would keep the opponent from hitting a home run, but it bit the Yankees' bats last time, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is going to be a tough game for the Yankees tonight. I mean, Tanaka has to get out of the first inning without giving up any runs. When we think about the last game, Altuve hit a leadoff home run, Charlton, in the first inning to catapult the Astros to that victory when they shut out the Yankees to take the 2-1 lead. Now they're coming out, and you got Zach Greinke on the mound tonight, Charlton. This guy's had a 1.25 ERA throughout the playoffs, and so he's tough. And so if the Yankees get behind, Charlton, and you got Greinke on the mound, and, they don't have a chance for the Yankees if Greinke gets ahead of them.
Yeah, and that's the one thing about New York. This new stadium, I know it's new. It has everything people like. But it doesn't have that old feeling that the old Yankee Stadium had. But maybe that's part of someone's imagination. I still hope we get 7 games out of this series. And one thing I want to mention also that I'm partial to the Yankees, even though I'm a West Coast guy. The universe can be seen at nighttime while you're at a Major League Baseball stadium. Everybody can see the moon at some point in time. And I remember there have been games, at least on the West Coast, even at Yankee Stadium, where you can see the moon at night. You can see the moon and the stars. In fact, you can see the universe. And I think baseball is great when you can look up and see the stars. not just the stars on the field. And I know Houston has a lot of heat and humidity, but that to me is what makes baseball that is played outside. Does that matter to you at all, Big C, or would you rather play in an air-conditioned building, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, at this time of the year when the temperature in New York tonight is 40 degrees, I would much prefer the confines in Houston. Houston had the best record in baseball for a reason, Charlton, because they have a complete team. They have the hitters to go along with the pitchers. I mean, the Yankees were right behind them in wins. And, you know, it used to be a thing that certain arenas held a certain esteem. The young players of today's market, Charlton, weren't around to understand the lore of those old arenas.
Yeah.
And so they really don't affect them. Young players are all about what's modern, what's nice. Yeah. Where can I go and don't have the rickety, old, smelly building?
Yeah.
That's what the young players look at today.
Well, that might be true. I still love looking at the moon and stars when I'm watching baseball at night. But then again, it's all fair and love and war. I want to just, we talk about stars, and this is a star league. Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, not the Chicago Bulls, but Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, and, Kareem and Magic. They had the Magic show when the Lakers were doing their thing back in the day, and Kobe and the LA Lakers. We all know those things. Patrick Ewing and the New York Knicks. So, which athlete, Big C, in major sports, when they're on TV, that you would stop doing what you're doing to watch, whether it's pro football or basketball? But let me get your thoughts. Pro football, if there's a player that's on and you say, I got to stop what I'm doing and watch this guy play, who would that be? Your thoughts?
Well, for me, if I had my digs to watch a pro football game, Charlton, and one athlete that moves the needle for me in the NFL today would be Patrick Mahomes. I mean, when I watch Mr. Mahomes do what he does, which is total magic on the football field. I mean, we have great quarterbacks throughout the NFL.
Yeah.
But this guy is must-see NFL TV. There's not a fan in the NFL that is not enamored with Mr. Mahomes when he's playing football.
Yeah, especially the commercials that he's making with Aaron Rodgers. Let me get your thoughts on basketball. LeBron James had an incredible shot last night. Again, it's preseason, but they made the win look pretty easy over the Warriors last night. Again, it is preseason. But in basketball, is there a player that you say, I gotta watch this guy play? Your thoughts?
I mean, when you go across the radar in the NBA now, Captain, there's so many highlight reel players. But there's one player that has captured everybody's attention over the last 5 years in the league, and that would have to be Steph Curry out of the Golden State Warriors. I mean, when he's hot, he's hot.
Yeah.
There's nothing like him. He's totally magical. I mean, he can hit a shot walking into the arena.
Yeah.
He can hit a shot walking out of the arena. He changes the complexion of basketball games whenever he's in that rhythm.
Yeah, and he does a lot before the game so the kids can see him. I think that's very nice. What about hockey? I know you like ice. A lot of guys put ice in their drinks. You like to, from what I understand, lay your head on ice every now and then if that shine is a little bit too strong for you, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, when I look at hockey, Charlton, and this is a game that everybody doesn't understand, but I look at it and I appreciate it for what it is. I think the greatest professional athletes in our time play hockey, Charlton, because when you think about the size of these men and the speed of these men, running around on ice with knives strapped to their feet, Charlton, with a stick in their hand, chasing a little black rock across ice, it's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And they got to hit it into a little square area that's being guarded by somebody who looks like a walrus. So I would turn to Sidney Crosby of the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah.
You know, Sidney's been an MVP 3 times. He's won a few Stanley Cups in his tenure. When he was the first overall draft pick in the NHL over a decade ago, he was the chosen one, and he has delivered on that promise.
Yeah, hockey can be exciting, especially when you understand how to keep your eyes on that puck. But see, how about baseball? We're in the World Series coming up pretty soon, and we know that Washington Nationals are already there waiting for somebody to show up. But who in baseball, for me it used to be Barry Bonds, hands down, and before him, I really love when Reggie Jackson would come up to the bat, Big C. I'm a West Coast guy. But give me your thoughts on baseball. Who makes you put down that libation so you can watch it even for just a moment, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, as everybody looks across the landscape of baseball, and we talk about the high-priced players that are in the game and players who are delivering and not delivering, there's a young player that I've been really excited about watching the last 2 years. He plays for the Atlanta Braves, Raul Acuna Jr., Charlton. This young man is headed nothing but superstardom in front of him. When you think about the exploits that he has done in his first 2 years in the major leagues, he's led the Atlanta Braves to the Eastern Division title in the NL. He became a member of the 40-40 club last year, Charlton, in Major League Baseball, one of the youngest players to ever do it. Also one of the 3 youngest players to ever hit 40 home runs before the age of 21.
That's amazing. He has a star written up all over him, Big C. If you go to the realm of college football, where I believe in the next 3 years or so, you'll have guys being able to make money in their likeness. It just got to work its way through the courts, Big C. College football, what player makes you say, I got to watch that game? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look across the landscape of college football, and there are so many great dominant players out there in all positions. You can look at defense, you can look at offense. But the guy that I really like and has really impressed me is Jalen Hurts. And I can't think of anybody who is not pulling for Jalen Hurts, the quarterback at the University of Oklahoma. This young man went 26-2 as a starter at Alabama, lost his job.
Wow.
He lived with character, Charlton, and he stayed a teammate at Alabama. He didn't cause any waves. He sit down there and bought his time. He decided to transfer to Oklahoma, and all he's done at Oklahoma is win, just like he did at Alabama. You gotta pull for this young man, and even just want to watch him play.
I think that even people in Texas that respect how good he was in that game against the Longhorns. How about golf? Everybody talks about, I can't wait to see golf, especially when Tiger Woods is winning, or whether it's the great Jack from back in the day, or Trevino, or Koepka, whoever it is, Vijay Singh, Nicholson, them good old boys. What guy on TV makes you say, I gotta watch that golf tournament? Big C, your thoughts?
You know, Tiger Woods is the guy who makes everybody want to watch golf. When you hear that Tiger Woods is in a tournament, everyone pays attention, whether you're a golf aficionado or not. Tiger Woods makes people sit down and pay attention to golf.
That is very well said, and I hope that he finds that spark again in the next 5 years or so he can keep winning, because he's not that, he's at 15 majors, 18 is where you're tied. I know there's a lot of people in the golf universe that don't want to see Jack's record be caught or even sniff that, Big C, but we'll see what happens with Tiger. I want to get over to the world of tennis. If you can play tennis, you got to be accurate enough to hit that little yellow ball that's coming across that net, sometimes at 100 miles per hour, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, tennis, you talk about the ultimate competitive game of one-on-one, Charlton, where it's you, the ball, and your opponent.
Yeah.
Game in, game out. And as I watch the game of tennis, a guy who has always electrified me is Rafa Nadal, the Spaniard, Charlton, the lefty. This is a guy who plays with intensity. When he's on the clay court, there's a 90% chance that Rafa is going to win that tournament.
Yeah.
He's won also sufficiently on grass and soft surfaces, but he's the most dominant clay court man that I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Yeah, he's still doing his thing. What about gymnastics? I don't know about you, but the last time I did a somersault, it was on a roller coaster, Big C. I thought I was doing something. I just had to buckle my seat and not fall out. Who makes you feel like I gotta watch that gymnastics event, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Simone Biles has redefined the sport of women's gymnastics, just gymnastics around the world. The most decorated gymnast in history. 25 medals as this young lady has won worldwide in championships and Olympics. And she just came off another world championship, Charlton. But when you want to see an athlete of pure athleticism and dedication, you have to watch Simone Biles.
Well, it's amazing because it's a very dedicated sport, and you got to be really locked in to do your thing in that world of sports. I want to just finish up some thoughts on, and we'll run through it quick, Big C. And I think about offense and what players are dominant on offense in college. I'm just going to run down my thoughts. You can say what you want about those players. Quarterback Joe Burrow, LSU. I think he's doing his thing right now. I like running back. You look at Jonathan Taylor, Wisconsin. Running back Chuba Hubbard out of Oklahoma State. He's amazing. Wide receiver Jamar Chase out of LSU. That guy can go up and get it. Another player, wide receiver, Devonta Smith out of Alabama is amazing. Tight end Jacob Breland out of Oregon, them Oregon Ducks, Big C. And then the center, Tyler Biadasz, he's out of Wisconsin. That guy can really drive defensive players off the line. Offensive line, Andrew Thomas out of Georgia. That good old boy is very strong. Offensive line, Penny Swell out of Oregon, another Duck. But a guy I really like too, offensive line, Calvin Throckmorton out of Oregon. And then I know someone you might like a lot, offensive line, Jedrick Willis out of Alabama. That's some offensive guys that I think are doing their thing this year. Big C, give me your thoughts.
Well, when you look at that early season offensive team, Charlton, that you put together, that'd be a great All-American team. in any era. You have some dominant players, and I think the most underrated player on that team would be Chuba Hubbard, the running back out of Oklahoma State. This young man is a Canadian, so he wasn't American-born, so he didn't grow up with the football background that everyone else did that you have named on that team.
Yeah.
But Chuba Hubbard is leading the nation in rushing as a sophomore at Oklahoma State, Charlton. So he is a phenomenal player. He has a great and bright future ahead of him.
Yeah.
But as you look at his accolades, Charlton, he needs to get more consideration in that Heisman run, and even being a Canadian.
Yeah, I think that guy can really do his thing. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all around the world on the #1 podcast network in the universe on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on what's called a television set, and a lot of people still have them on Xfinity Comcast television. Also launching on Roku TV, on Apple TV, Fire TV, Amazon TV, and smart TVs all over the universe. Big C, I want to get to my thoughts on defense on the defense side of the ball. Just for right now for college football, defensive line Chase Young, that good boy out of Ohio State, is amazing. Defensive line Derek Brown out of Auburn, he had a great game coming up, and he played well all season. Defensive line James Lynch out of Baylor, them good boys down in Waco are doing the thing. Defensive line, you have Curtis Weaver, that good boy plays at Boise State for the Broncos, kind of underrated, but he's really good. Linebacker Evan Weaver out of Cal Berkeley, go fight Cal. The Bears are out on the field. I missed the great Joe Starkey's calling of those games, Big C. You have a linebacker by the name of Cole Garrett out of Missouri. He's good. Linebacker Zach Blow, he's out of Wisconsin. A lot of homebred guys there. Cornerback Derek Stingley, he's out of LSU, those Fighting Tigers. Cornerback C.J. Henderson is amazing, out of Florida, can really run people down. Safety, you have Grant Dilpit, and he's out of LSU. And then a team that I think should at least be in college football Final Four if they keep doing their thing. He's a safety out of the Ohio State Buckeyes. His name is Jordan Fuller. Big C, give me your thoughts on those players right now for All-American status.
Well, when you think about all those players you just named on defense, Charlton, you talked earlier in the program about guys' aspirations to play in the NFL. I think all 22 of those players that you named will be in the NFL over the next couple of years.
Yep.
But I look at Young, the defensive end out of Ohio State, and everybody's saying the praise of Joey Bosa, who was there at Ohio State last year, the defensive end who is now with the San Francisco 49ers. Young is an upgrade of Bosa. You talk about a kid with a high motor, great athleticism.
Yeah.
Ohio State has found a way to get elite linemen to come to that university offensively and defensively.
Yep.
And it's really showed over the past several years on the defensive line.
Yeah, they're doing their thing. Big C is important. You know, Elijah Cummings, obviously, you know, God bless his family, but it's what you do, not how long you live. October 17, on this date, 1968, front page newspaper photos, and people all over the world saw for themselves, you know, they could see it with their own eyes, what they had only heard about in the news the day before. In a silent demonstration on the victory platform of the 1968 Mexico City Olympics, two of the world's top 3 athletes in the world. Think about it. In the 200-meter event, Tommy Smith, John Carlos, they were both African-American, black men. They accepted their medals, the gold and the bronze, and with the raised fist glove, a black leather glove, they stood up against protesting, and they got ostracized for it. It was 1968, the year when America's greatest emissary of peace, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., his life came to an end. He was shot down. He was a man of faith, and we still think about those similar moments to this day. Tying that with Elijah Cummings and Big C Sports, you don't need someone's permission to breathe. God gave you that permission. But it's a pretty sad dog that won't wag his own tail. All of these people fought for civil rights, not just for them, but for people to come in the future. Big C is so important that we never forget. Your thoughts?
Well, it's amazing in American society how the backlash that black people get for standing up for what they feel that they need, equality in this country.
Yeah.
And every time that they do it, it seems to be some disgruntled individuals that say you don't deserve it, whether it was the death of Dr. King or it's the ostracization of Smith and Carlos in the '68 Olympics, banned from amateur athletics for the rest of their lives for a peaceful protest.
Yeah.
This is Dr. King said, nonviolent peaceful protest to speak against oppression and segregation in our country of America. And this is how America has always treated African Americans who desire to have equality in this country.
Yeah.
And so there's still a long road that African American culture has to travel in this country. It's a long ways from equality.
Yeah.
It's not that just Black Lives Matter, Charlton. It's about Black equality matters, and I think that needs to be the speech and the mantra to move forward. That Black equality matters more than anything else.
I think that's very well said, and I love that because all we want is equality for everybody. All life came from the African continent. Dr. Leakey, Gregory Mendel, you can Google them. And I think if mainstream knew that, then it would end racism, because how can you hate your own seed? The dominant seed is black, the recessive seed is white. That's science. And just Google that. So if we have more respect for where life came from, these people wouldn't have to fight so hard just for equality. Big C, back in the day. There was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble, Big C. What are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, there's going to be a couple of interesting things that occur in professional sports tonight. In New York City, in Major League Baseball, and in NFL, in Denver, Colorado, in the NFL.
Yep.
Two teams have an opportunity to go on 3-game losing streaks. The Kansas City Chiefs, who have lost their last two, and the Denver Broncos, who have won their last two. The New York Yankees that have lost their last two, and the Houston Astros that have won their last two. Which one of those will prevail tonight?
And you can win, too, every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.